Hey guys, welcome back to the Rejuvum channel. Today I'd like to go over what I consider to be the ultimate vegan breakfast. I've had a lot of Jonathan's caregivers comment on how ever since I switched up his breakfast to a vegan breakfast, I used to give him bacon in the morning because I thought that the fat that was in the bacon was really good for his brain. For those of you that don't know, Jonathan does suffer from autism. He's basically 15 years old, nonverbal autistic. And one of the issues that he used to have is that at school, he basically was having a lot of behavioral issues. And ever since I switched him over to this vegan breakfast, I've been told by his teachers at school that he's doing a lot better now. And so several people have asked me, well, what's the recipe? How can I make this vegan breakfast that you give him? And so today we're going to go ahead and go over that. Okay, so here we go. This is pretty simple. You're just going to need, a little saucepan. You could either cover it with extra virgin olive oil or with some sort of plant butter, to keep it vegan. Obviously, you're going to need a knife to cut up the vegetables. I usually like to use a purple onion, but in this case, I'm going to have to use a yellow onion because, things being the way that they are, the stores are out of a lot of stuff. You're also going to need some celery. You're also going to need some cauliflower. You're also going to need some broccoli. And usually I like to add cauliflower, but again, stores being out of a lot of things, I wasn't able to get it. I usually like to use the shears to cut everything up. Also, with the sweet peppers, I usually like to use a red, an orange, and a yellow. But again, stores being out of stuff, you improvise. 3 cloves of garlic. You'll need a garlic press. I like to use this Sazón seasoning packet. Adds a nice earthy flavor to it. Since my son does like things salty, I'm going to go ahead and use some adobo. But you could use sea salt. There's a lot of different things that you can use in place of that. You're going to need a cup of water. These two things are optional, but they're things that I like to add to almost everything that I make. Number one is mineral power, because let's face it, these days, if you take a look at most foods that are out there, or I should say most vegetables that are out there, they don't have anywhere near the level of nutrition that they used to have. I mean, let's face it, over 100 years ago they started building dams everywhere, and so these farms that used to get flooded out every few years now no longer get flooded out. All of that water is very controlled, and so the situation that you have today is that the soil is not really replenished the way that it used to be. 100 years ago, you used to go out to these farms and you'd have 1.5 to 2 feet of topsoil. These days, it's maybe about 1/4 of an inch of topsoil. So obviously, that's not going to have the level of nutrition. We always hear from a lot of health professionals that really get absolutely no training in nutrition that tell us, well, vitamins are a waste of time. You should just, eat the right foods. Yes and no, because the reality is that the foods these days don't have the level of nutrition that they used to have, with modern farming techniques, with the soil being depleted the way that it is. And then the other thing that I like to add is iodine. And the reason that I like to add iodine is because back in the 50s and 60s, iodine used to be used for a lot of things. You basically had iodine in bread as a leavening agent, which gave bread about 1/4 of a milligram per slice. The dairy farmers used to use iodine to swab the teats of the cows before they milked them, resulting in about 1/2 milligram of iodine in every 8 ounces of milk that you drank. These days, that's no longer true. A lot of them have switched to bromine for various reasons. And so the end result is that even though bromine is a halide, just like iodine and just like fluoride, iodine is the only of the 3 halides that is actually required by your body. And it is basically necessary in the regulation of cell production in your body. That is why, if you take a look at Okinawa before the 1990s, before the big changeover in their diet, the people who lived in Okinawa were the longest lived people on the planet. You know, that's why they had 70% lower rates of cancer, of breast cancer, of prostate cancer, 90% lower rates of thyroid cancer over in Okinawa. These days, you know, Okinawa is very similar to the rest of Japan. I mean, they still live longer than us, but they basically consume more meat and less vegetables, less of the sea vegetables especially, than their ancestors did, and so they don't have those fantastic health benefits like their ancestors had. And the other thing that we like to use here is, I actually normally like to use fava bean and chickpea flour, but again, with things being the way that they are, I couldn't find the fava bean and chickpea flour, so I just settled for chickpea flour, you know, and we're going to go ahead and add that towards the end. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with this onion here. Jonathan really does not like big pieces, so I like to use the shears to cut these up into small little pieces. So we're going to go ahead and set the stove to high. And generally what I like to use, I just like to use the shears to go ahead and cut up the pieces of broccoli. And yes, I do use part of the stem because, you know what, it's just as nutritious as the rest of it and just as tasty. I don't know why everybody throws that part away. As this is sauteing, you want to go ahead and make sure that you mix it around a bit so you don't burn it too badly. But you know, I like doing things pretty quickly, so let's use the scissors. It's a little bit safer this way. You want to saute this until, usually what I do honestly is I saute it until I just start to smell that it's starting to burn a little bit. As you can see, it's already starting to look pretty good. Once the onions start to get a little bit more translucent, then I know that it's cooked pretty well. So some of these pieces are a little bit too big. I know how my son is. So, gotta keep the pieces small. For me, it doesn't matter, but you know, for him, it definitely does. So, And like I said, usually I put this on high until it's nice and sauteed. And it's starting to smell just about right. I'm not smelling it burn, but I think that we're right about there. So that's good. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and add my cup of water. And now that I've got my water in there, I'm going to go ahead and add, my minerals and my iodine. Generally, I like to try to make sure that Jonathan gets at least 10 milligrams of iodine daily. So here I'm going to put 2 drops. And the reason for 2 drops is because this is Lugol solution 2.5. 2.5 basically gives you 2.5 milligrams daily. I try to get him all of his iodine by lunch, because iodine, if you have it at night, you're going to be up all night. Gives you a lot of energy. So, and then there's my minerals. Like I said, he likes things a bit salty, so the adobo and the sazon. The sazon gives it that nice earthy flavor. So let's go ahead and get that in there. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add my garlic. And the reason I like to add it towards the end is because I don't like garlic overcooked. I like it pretty much freshly pressed. Ah, damn it. Too much filling here. That piece is okay, this piece is okay, that piece is okay. Alright. So, repress. There we go. And that should be good. Wish you guys could smell this, because it smells really good right now. So, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the heat. Now, in a electric stove like this one, basically once you turn off the heat, it's almost like having a gas stove that's on low, because the heating element is still hot. It's just not, as high of an output. So right here, I'm going to go ahead and put in a spoonful of sugar. Actually, not a spoonful of sugar, a spoonful of flour. Well, realistically, I mean, the amount that I put in here is closer to like 2 tablespoons. I'm not really one for measuring, but yeah. So, if you're one of those people, you've got to measure it. It's probably about 2 tablespoons. Gives it about as much protein as what you would get in like about 3 to maybe 4 eggs. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just have this soak up the rest of that water. And let me taste this, because if it's not salty enough, he's not going to eat it. Needs just a little tiny bit more. Yeah, that's too much more, but. That's the ticket. Okay, so here we go. Pour it out here. For those of you who love omelets, this stuff is so good. There it is, folks. It is really, really good stuff. So, I'd appreciate it if some of you guys would try this recipe, and let me know. Let me know what you think. Is it as good as I think it is? Is it as good as Jonathan thinks it is? Hey guys, thought I'd go into some of the methodology that I use for coming up with some of my ideas. Particularly this one right here. It's like, people ask me, well, why did you think of a vegan breakfast? Why did you think that this would help Jonathan? And the reason was very simple. I saw a movie called The Game Changers. And basically, it's a movie that was put together by Arnold Schwarzenegger along with some Olympic athletes. And they went into one of the big things about a vegan diet and how it helped reduce inflammation, helps the body to recover better. They were talking about how, the world's first athletes, the gladiators, they were pretty much all vegan. And they knew this because of, certain tests that they had done on their teeth showed that they had much more strontium in their teeth and so on and so forth. But one of the big things about this was how the blood flow is basically impaired when you eat a lot of fatty foods that you would find in meat. And this impaired blood flow basically leads to inflammation. And pretty much, anyone who has gastric issues knows that inflammation is the one big thing that you want to try to avoid. So, like, one of the things that they did was that they took these football players and they basically gave them a beef burrito one day, except for the guy in the middle because he's been a vegan, and then basically the next day they went and they gave them a vegan vegan bean burrito. Basically, both of these burritos had the same amount of protein, the same amount of fat, but when they went and they took their blood and put it in a centrifuge, what they found was that the plasma was nice and clear on someone who had a vegan diet, or I should say, someone who ate the bean burrito versus meat-based diet. Basically, it was all cloudy. Someone who had a plant-based diet, it was nice and clear. So from this, I thought to myself, okay, so if the fat in the meat, and I was giving bacon to Jonathan like almost every day. So if that fat was basically causing him inflammation, then that's probably a big reason why he's having, so many issues. And so I thought to myself, okay, so let's go ahead and try giving him a vegan breakfast and see if he does better. And he actually ended up doing so much better in school that his teachers, his therapist, everybody was like, this is a new kid. This is a different kid. He is doing so much better than before. And they really couldn't understand it. And so I thought to myself, okay, he's obviously doing so much better with this, and so let's try expanding this, like eggplant parmesan and other things like that. One of the other big things about this particular movie is how they were talking about how when you're eating meat, it creates a lot of inflammatory byproducts. in your system. Whereas when you're eating plant-based foods, it's actually the other way around. You get so much antioxidants, you get so much of this good stuff basically that's that's actually healing your body and lowering inflammation, that I just thought, okay, let's give this a shot and see what happens, and that's how I ended up getting into this. So hope you guys liked the video. Any thoughts or any comments about methodologies that I used in coming up with the solution? And I'd really like to hear what you guys have to say. So thanks a lot. Have a great one. And as usual, likes, comments, shares, all of that is very much appreciated. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.